Look, Apollo might have been a sleeper a year ago, but I'd say with the silver sector going the way it is, the share performance has been nothing short of spectacular, particularly in the last 6 months. But I think people haven't seen anything yet.
Welcome to Proven and Probable. I'm Maurice Jackson, and I'm delighted to have you here today. Before we begin today's video, make sure you give us a thumbs up and leave a comment in the comment section below. And as always, we thank you for your continued support. And just a reminder, we sell physical precious metals through Miles Franklin Precious Metals Investments. We offer physical delivery to your home, precious metal IRAs, and Brinks depository accounts. You can reach me at 855-505-1900. That's 855-505-1900. Or you may email Maurice@milesfranklin.com. That's Maurice@milesfranklin.com. Welcome to Proven and Probable. I'm your host, Maurice Jackson. Today, we're going to highlight Apollo Silver, which is building a silver and critical minerals powerhouse. Joining us for a conversation is award-winning Ross McElroy, the president, CEO, and director of Apollo Silver, a company that controls one of the largest primary silver assets in the United States. Mr. McElroy, thank you for joining us today, sir.
Great to be here with you today, Maurice.
Mr. McElroy, you have a proven pedigree of success. I know you're a modest, humble person, but for our audience members, would you please tell us about your award-winning pedigree and the lucrative sale of your most recent endeavor at Fission Uranium?
Sure. I'll spend a couple of minutes on that, I guess. I think, as you say, most people would recognize me from the uranium world, where I guess I spent the last 18 years of my career in the first version of Fission, which is Fission Energy, and then Fission Uranium. Both of those companies were really successful. They ended off with a sale, a discovery of significant deposits and sale. The most significant, of course, being the PLS project that we found in Fission Uranium. And recently being the end of 2024, as I was the CEO of Fission Uranium, we sold that asset to the company, to Paladin Energy out of Australia, for just a little bit north of $1.14 billion. So that was a huge win, from from a discovery, really a concept to discovery to, outlining, bringing a project along through advanced stages, detailed engineering, basically to the point where it's almost shovel ready and ready for a mining company to take over. So that was really what the exit was all about with Fission Uranium. Shareholders, I think, did rather well on that. And, that freed me up and ready to go again.
Well, Fission Uranium, I know, is a big feather in your cap, and now you're looking to replicate that success right here. Sir, you now have your sights set on silver and critical minerals. The timing of Apollo Silver couldn't be at a more opportune time for speculators. Before we delve into Apollo Silver, provide us with an overview of silver, as the silver charts look incredibly strong right now. And what do you attribute this recent move in the price of silver to? And based on your long-term view of the fundamentals, how long do you foresee this tailwind lasting?
Yeah, well, I guess, it's been tremendous appreciation and value in the precious metals overall, both gold and silver. But gold was the early leader in the price appreciation, but in calendar 2025, silver's been playing a lot of catch up. So whereas gold has increased, I guess, since the beginning of the year by some 40%, silver, on the other hand, is up 60% from where it started in January 1st of this year. So we began at $29 an ounce silver, and now it's currently about $46 an ounce. So it's moving up rapidly, and I think that fundamentals of precious metals, I think, are rather strong, and I think they're closely associated with the U.S. dollar going the other way. And So I think people look to precious metals as a hedge. So I think that's part of the activity there. It's a bet, for quality assets outside of a U.S. dollar. Now, on the other side of the equation, silver is very much also an industrial metal. So it plays both a dual role as a precious metal in monetary sense, and also as an industrial metal in today's new economy. So as everything becomes more electrified going forward, silver is an absolute critical mineral, we'll say, a strategic mineral with respect to that. So, both of the, and there is a deficit in silver overall. So basically, I think the whole silver sector has done really remarkable, this calendar year. But Apollo Silver is behaving extremely well, and it's been just a tremendous vehicle for shareholders.
Yeah, there are a number of catalysts for silver right now. And as you referenced, the price today just exceeded over $46, which is a 15-year high, and it looks to be climbing along with the share price of Apollo Silver, coincidentally. Well, now that we have a better understanding of silver's proposition in one's portfolio, let's find out how Apollo Silver is positioning itself as the front runner of being a value driver for silver speculators. Please introduce us to Apollo Silver's management and board of directors.
Sure. I guess Apollo Silver, it's a very young company. It was founded in 2021 by Andy Bowring. He put together the company, and the first thing Andy did was look for quality assets to put into the company. So the first project was the Calico in southwestern California. So that was the start of Apollo Silver back in 2021. They were able to put together a very solid board with great experience in both, the capital market side of the business, on the technical side, on basically, you've got directors that cover all aspects of the business. And most recently, just this week, I've joined Apollo's board of directors as well. So that'll give a little bit more depth on the technical side, as well as a professional geologist with about 40 years experience in there. So I think you're looking at a board that knows how to, and a management group that knows how to not only find good assets, but able to develop them, move them along, and ultimately, turn what look to be great looking assets into mining propositions. And really, that's what we have at Apollo Silver. As I say, we got started with the asset in California, in Southwest California. And then in 2024, Apollo Silver signed an option agreement with Mag Silver for a world-class asset in northern Mexico in the state of Chihuahua, and that would be the Cinco de Mayo property. So it's, as I say, young company, but really, really good assets. And I think maybe what differentiates us to others, there's very little geologic risk on either of these assets. The challenge and the opportunity is more to do with, say, permitting side in California and in Mexico on building social relationships. And, those are both issues that we are very confident that we can, we can gain traction and success on. And this will allow us to, move these assets forward to advanced stages, ultimately mining operations.
Well, let's go on site. Mr. McElroy, Apollo Silver hosts two promising projects that have enormous upside potential. Take us on to the Calico Project, which released a robust, updated mineral resource estimate. Please share the highlights with us.
Sure. It's, the Calico Project is really consists of two deposits. There's the Waterloo deposit, which hosts probably 2/3 of the silver on the property, and the Langtree deposit, which is basically around 35% of the silver assets itself. What was new about the mineral resource estimate that we did put out probably about a month ago now, we were able to increase the amount of measured and indicated, and inferred, so basically all categories of silver. And gold as well. We more than doubled the amount of gold that's in the system, but I'll get talked about that in just a little bit. But the primary asset, silver, we now have 125 million ounces of silver in measured and indicated, or further 57 million ounces in inferred category, and an increase in gold that's now 130,000 ounces of gold. And really that's a function of metal prices. So it's as we talked at the beginning of this interview, with the price of silver and gold increasing sharply, we were able to lower our cutoff grade and actually bring in more mineralization into the resource category. And so now we host probably either the largest or certainly one of the largest primary silver assets in the United States. But in addition, with the mineral resource estimate, we also brought in new minerals that had never been considered previously, and they're critical minerals, barite and zinc. So now you've got four elements: silver, barite, zinc, and gold that make up the Calico Project assets.
I tell you what, the proposition is extremely compelling. I've have about 10 years experience in this, and the chances or probability of having a young company already have the measured and indicated categories in an MRE, that is not common.
No, it truly is remarkable. As I said, I think, what we looked at is acquiring projects that already had a certain amount of geologic risk taken off. They had discovered assets, but, for whatever reason, the companies that had them before, it was maybe not core to them, but certainly core to us. The Calico Project, the Waterloo Project on Calico, was actually a Pan American asset, and Pan American were, at that time, back in the early 2020, so 2021, they were not going to focus on California. They had other places to look, and so that became an opportunity for us. And in the case of Cinco de Mayo in Mexico, that was a project that Mag Silver had problems at the community level. They had made a tremendous discovery down there, and I'm sure we'll talk about it here, in specifics. But basically, it was an asset that was troubled more at the community level, not the geologic side. I mean, every geologist out there that knows quality deposits would consider Cinco de Mayo to be one of the top silver zinc assets worldwide.
May I ask you, are we looking at a potential open pit, or is this underground? And also, did you touch on grams per ton?
Well, California, you'd be looking at open pit. So that's a near surface deposits. The Waterloo and the Langtree deposits on Calico are near surface or bulk tonnage type scenarios. The average grade at Waterloo is 71 grams per ton, using a 46 gram per ton cutoff, and Langtree is essentially the same thing. It's 73 gram per ton asset, and using a similar cutoff grade. So they're not, they're reasonable grade deposits, but what makes them attractive is that they're very shallow, open pittable, bulk tonnage, and then of course with the other minerals, the zinc, barite, and gold in the system, I think it becomes quite economically attractive. The Mexican asset is a little bit different. On Cinco de Mayo, it's deeper. That would be an underground mining operation by the time we advance it far enough to go. So you're looking at surface open pit scenarios in California, underground mining in Mexico.
Now, many insiders of the opinion that Apollo Silver may have caught a tiger by its tail. What makes the Calico Project in California unique from a geological and scale perspective?
Well, first of all, as we kind of already touched on, just the absolute size and scope of the deposit. As an undeveloped silver primary deposit, it's probably ranked number one in the U.S. in size. I think, the fact that it's in the San Bernardino County, I think is such an important part. And maybe this is a point to make on both projects, that in California and Mexico. These are in jurisdictions that are very pro-development. They're projects that we know that we can permit, and they're great assets. They're already well drilled, delineated. There's still some more work to be done down in Mexico, but they're both in jurisdictions that we can, we're very comfortable in operating. In California, San Bernardino, that would be the top mining jurisdiction in the state of California. People may not, they hear California and they think that permitting might be problematic. I think quite the contrary. San Bernardino has about 90 different operations already in place within the state, the county. It has North America's largest rare earth and only rare earth mining operation. That's in San Bernardino County. Also, Equinox Gold have the Castle Mountain project, about 100 or so miles from the Calico Project. Also, San Bernardino, that's a mining operation. There's several open pit gravel quarries out there. There's really quite a whole plethora. I think that it is definitely a place that you can build a mine in.
Well, you stole the thunder from my next question. So permitting is not a challenge that you foresee. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, it's you have to play the long game, Maurice. Here, when you go into areas, yes, you can permit there. Is there an easy path forward? No, there's a lot of work to be done. You have to have a very detailed baseline environmental work. You have to spend your time in the communities, and you have to spend your time talking to the regulators, the permitters, and you have to do things in the right, responsible method. If you take that approach, you take the long term, you do everything right, you keep your lines of communication open, people are transparent about what you're doing, you can demonstrate the economic benefits and spin-offs, I'm confident that this is the right jurisdiction to be able to build a mine. So, we're very, very comfortable about being, and it's particular because it is the San Bernardino County, and that makes all the difference in California.
So the Calico Project hosts 2 critical minerals and what looks to be a pending third in silver. And so we have barite, we have zinc. What do these designations mean for Apollo Silver in terms of project development, capital access, and strategic importance?
Well, and I'll also add, too, that silver's on the short list to be classified as a critical mineral as well. What the classification of critical minerals does, the U.S. is definitely on a trajectory to build and develop their own assets. They want to be independent of relying on, other countries, particularly Asian countries, we'll say, on critical minerals. Critical minerals are those that are generally considered important in the new burgeoning economy, as we touched on earlier in the interview, on the electrification of basically everything. I think the critical minerals are very important with respect to batteries, energy, just the whole equation. And silver is a key part of that story as well. So, which is why it's listed there. I think being classified as a critical mineral will give us a certain amount of clout when we're trying to permit the mine with both the federal, state, and county governments and jurisdictions. The critical minerals have a pathway forward to development, and so that's why it was important for us to evaluate and establish a resource in barite, in zinc as well, and we're fortunate that silver is also on that short list to be a critical mineral. And basically what that means is you can get yourself into the FAST 41 classification of which basically eliminates a lot of red tape and potentially a lot of time off of the permitting process to move projects forward. So it does give us a great advantage over if you were trying to mine something that wasn't a critical mineral in the state. It should eliminate a great deal of red tape.
Now, I know many of us are familiar with silver and the gold proposition, but many of us may not be aware of barite and zinc. Can you touch on those for us?
Sure. Well, barite is used primarily in the drilling industry. It's a weighting agent. You use it in drill muds. There isn't a drill out there that doesn't use a formula of bentonite and barite in its, when you're drilling holes. So it's a mineral that the U.S. imports over 75% of. And so, as I say, they're trying to become dependent, or independent on resources within the United States. And so, I think that's a critical part. Zinc is always a byproduct in steel, for example. It's basically a necessary part in alloys in the metal industry. So they're important to the project, but really Calico does hang on the value of silver. So it's, I'd say 75% of the resource value is still locked up in silver. The other ones are sweeteners to the overall economics. And as I said, they'll help us, I think, give us some clout as we're looking to advance on the permitting and regulatory side.
Now, before we move on to your second project, the Cinco de Mayo project, can you share with us what work is currently being conducted on site? What is the next unanswered question for the Calico? And when will we find out results, and what determines success?
Sure. Well, now that we're done the mineral resource estimate that we concluded in early September, sometime in October, we'll actually publish the full 43-101 report. I think we're scheduled for somewhere around mid-October for that report to be published. But work on the ground is now getting us ready for a preliminary economic assessment, or a PEA, as most people refer to it. That's the next step, and that is really the beginning of true economic studies of the project. So the resource estimate tells you how much you have, the quality of the deposit. The next step is to get it into the economic understanding, what's the CapEx going to be to build it? How does a mine plan look like? How long is it going to take to build out? What's the life of mine? Those are the sort of questions that start getting answered at Calico, and we'll be working towards that, starting this fall. But that's there's several years involved in that. But in 2026, we should be able to complete the first study, being a PEA. Probably within a year or so after that, we'll move to a pre-feasibility study, followed maybe a year after that with a feasibility study, and then and then you work yourself basically towards building an operating mine. So that's the level we're at now. We did expand our land package at Calico significantly earlier this year. In May, we essentially, the claims that we acquired essentially triple the size of the Calico project. What that gives us is a great deal of exploration blue sky. So, yes, we'll be doing on the economic assessments this fall, working towards a PEA in early 2026, but we'll also be doing exploration work on the new Mule claims and following up. We think there's lots of room for expansion, new discoveries on the property, in particular, expanding the gold resource as well, and new other metals that we suspect exist on the new acquired claims there. So look for us to do exploration field work, some metallurgical work towards the engineering, and other geotechnical type studies that get us ready for a PEA in early 2026.
Now, is the goal to take it to production or sell it as an arbitrage?
I never really look at these things that way. I know that the end result here for a project for me is to get it into an operating mine. Whether it stays within our hands to, take it all the way for Apollo Silver to become a mining company or not, that's a decision I guess you make as you go further down the road. But what you can do is you can build these projects out. It's something I've done, multiple times with other companies, similar to what we did in Fission Uranium, for example. We took that project all the way through to the point where the next step is to permit and build a mine. And that may be what we're looking at here at Calico. You never quite know how long you're going to be the caretakers of it, but the important thing is to do a quality job all the way along. So even if you're not the final person doing the mining on the property, what you would sell to a company is an asset that's ready to go. And so that's our approach. We'll take the long-term approach and build this thing out properly.
Fair enough answer, sir. All right. Leaving California, let's go to Mexico, and please introduce us to the promising Cinco de Mayo project.
Yeah, Cinco de Mayo it's a beautiful looking deposit. It's a CRD, a carbonate replacement deposit, basically a skarn type deposit. Mexico is famous for hosting these CRD deposits. Large CRDs are generally considered 10 million tons to say 50 million tons. And that produces in Mexico, I think it's something upwards of 60% of the, overall silver production comes out of these types of deposits in Mexico. And Mexico is such an important, supplier, miner of silver to the world. Now, what Cinco de Mayo is, it's a project. The discovery was made by Mag Silver and drilled. There's about 439 drill holes on the property. They outlined a spectacular deposit called the Jose Manto zone. And towards the end of the drilling that Mag Silver did, and this is more than a decade ago, back in 2012, they drilled a new discovery called the Pegaso zone, which sits, could be a feeder system in the Jose Manto system. Basically, it's a complex skarn type deposit. It's high grade, so it has high grade silver, high grade zinc, high grade lead. There's gold. There's a little bit of copper in the system, but primarily a silver, zinc type deposit. With I think it's about 150 million ounce equivalent resource and indicated in the Jose Manto deposit. High grade, 385 gram per ton type deposit. So, much higher grade than we see in California. That's the kind of deposit that we have there. There hasn't been any work on the project, Maurice, since 2012. Mag Silver lost the confidence of the local community, and they were denied access onto the ground. And really, this is our opportunity, is to build fences with the local Ejido community, gain surface access rights, build a long-term relationship with them, get back on the ground, continue drilling and development of the Cinco de Mayo project.
Now, is that wholly owned, or is this under an option agreement at the present?
It's an option agreement. We have a 5-year term on the option agreement in order to, first of all, get social license, build a relationship with the community, have an access agreement to the ground, and then continue the work. The next stage of option, once we get the community license agreement portion, is to drill 20,000 meters. So roughly 6 months worth of drilling, we'll say, at Cinco de Mayo. And then we would issue, Mag Silver was bought by Pan American, so essentially we'd be issuing Pan American 19.9% of the equity in Apollo Silver at the time. So we'll let the market decide what the value of the project is worth, and we'd be giving Pan American 19.9% equity stake in the company after the 20,000 meters of drilling have been completed and announced to the public.
Some of the intrinsics that many of us overlook is that relationship base that you referred to that lost it to Mag Silver and allowed you to now gain that project. And I'm of the opinion, I've looked at both projects thoroughly. I like them both, but I'm biased here to the Cinco de Mayo. I love the proposition here. How does it fit into the overall strategy for your growth as a company?
I think right now we're probably getting very little to no value for Cinco de Mayo in the company right now. I think our market cap is pretty much based around the Calico Project in California, because that's one that we actually, we own Waterloo 100%. We have an option on Langtree, but basically that's one that we actually have. Whereas Cinco is an option that we have yet to complete that option, earn an agreement for. But I'm like you. I look at the Cinco de Mayo project, and first of all, it's large. We know it's large, and also we know it's high grade. And third, we know it has tremendous potential for expansion. I try not to use this term too commonly because it gets overused in this business, but it is truly a world-class asset. It's one that it's an absolute company maker. And I think once we are able to, secure the good, strong relationship with the local community and get working there again, I think the market is really going to fall in love with this project. And, I suspect our market cap will be probably based more on Cinco de Mayo than Calico even, and both really good, strong assets. But the fact you have size and grade in a project like Cinco, it's an absolute company maker.
Now, what work is currently being conducted on site, sir?
There is no work being done. So until we basically get the surface access right, we don't have the ability to get on the ground and do any work. We can do paperwork. We can look at the studies. We can, work on our geologic modeling. Where would we like to drill? What would we like to do? But really the work is going on at the community level right now. We are deep in discussions with the local APGO community. The APGOs are essentially farmers that have, been granted that land over top of this deposit for their farming activities. So they're the owners of the surface, and they're the group that we need to have an access agreement with. We do have a team in Mexico right now, a community relations focused team that's in there talking to community members. I will share that I was both myself and our chairman Andy Bowering were down in Mexico. What would it be, about 3 weeks ago now, and we met with the local APGO executive. And, we feel confident that they're now in a position where, they want to see something happen. They want to have an agreement. I think they want to have an agreement. We want to have an agreement. We think we're entering a period that's a win-win scenario for both us and for the local communities down there as well. So hopefully we'll get, we'll be able to announce hopefully later on this year significant progress with respect to that. And, once we can get surface access, we'll be very eager to get working right away down there.
All right, sir. Now, before we leave the project sites for both projects here, just for summary purposes, where does Apollo Silver stand in its development path right now? And what are the near-term priorities that investors should be looking for in the coming months?
Sure. Well, we will be active on the ground in California at Calico, as we've already discussed. So we want to, as I mentioned, we want to take that project further along the economic study assembly line, we'll say. So look for us to be getting ourselves ready for a PEA in early 2026. In Mexico, at Cinco de Mayo, we're going to continue focusing at the community level and hopefully continue to mend fences, build relationships, long-term relationships with the community down there that allow us to get access on the ground and get busy for work. So that's where we're focused on right now. We've got plenty of money in the treasury to carry us through. We love the silver sector. As we discussed at the beginning of the interview, we think we're in for a long-term bull market in the silver sector. So I just continue to build my team out, and we've expanded our technical team, on our investor relations business. The board has expanded. So Apollo's gone from what was essentially a dormant company about a year ago to one that's very, very active and looking to progress.
Let's look at some numbers. Sir, please provide the capital structure for Apollo Silver.
Sure. Well, we just recently completed a 5-for-1 consolidation. So now we're looking at share count, about 48.5 million shares outstanding. We do have warrants, about 7 million warrants, by the way, that are now in the money. So, those could provide another 30 million or so if those warrants are exercised. So, but right now the warrants are in the money. Basically we've got around $10 million in the treasury. We have no debt. So a nice small share count, as I say, of 48.5 million shares out. And institutional holdings, probably about a quarter of our shares are held by institutions. Insiders have between 15 and 17% or so of the company. So there is definitely skin in the game by insiders. I think we're set for pretty exciting future here.
What is your burn rate?
Our burn rate is pretty minimal right now. As I said, with Cinco de Mayo, there's very, very little expenditure going on. We are paying the maintenance fees down there. California, we're starting to ramp up expenditures as we move to the next level, getting ready for a PEA. But essentially, we're probably sitting around roughly $200,000 a month. Although we are starting to ramp up on all these levels. We are increasing our the number of people that work for us, employees, management. We are starting to market a little bit more and get our name out there. So, currently we're around 200, but we'll continue probably increasing that spend, which I think is appropriate given the tailwinds in the sector that we have and the kind of work that we've got ahead of us.
Before we close, what would you like to say to shareholders?
Look, Apollo might have been a sleeper a year ago, but I'd say with the silver sector going the way it is, the share performance has been nothing short of spectacular, particularly in the last 6 months. But I think people haven't seen anything yet. When we start getting active, both in California and down in Mexico at the Cinco de Mayo, I think you'll see a tremendous amount of news flow going. Great stories. These are great assets, and we're here to build the company into become the darling of the industry in the sector, and we've got the people and the assets that can do it.
Last question: what did I forget to ask?
I think you've covered pretty much everything that's important to talk about here, at least at this stage of the company. But as I said, I think with the consolidation now in behind us, I think we're ready to go here. We're primed and ready to go for an exciting fall and winter season.
Well, I know what I forgot to ask. For someone that wants to learn more about Apollo Silver, please share the ticker symbol and the website.
I forgot to mention that as well. So the ticker symbol, it's a TSXV company, and it's APGO.
And what is the website, sir?
The website is apollosilver.com.
All right. Mr. McElroy, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Wishing you and Apollo Silver the absolute best, sir.
Thank you very much.
The information presented on Proven and Probable is provided for educational and informational purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose. The information is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice, or any other advice. You should not make any financial, investment, or trading decision based on any of the information presented without first undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or competent financial advisor.